It's true.
Right,
I
we're
mean,
live.
one day you just found out something, next thing you know, it's pop up as, down all the time.
So does that happen to you? You've noticed that? That it-
Yeah, it's funny because I saw.
Is it gonna come up under videos or is it?
You can get parts made from a board, so they're cheap to help like nice throw stuff out, right? So it's one side you've got some personal and your offer, and the other side is point. So you know, you need the 3 yard build or whatever. So I got a great deal on this product. I said, okay, well, interesting. Lo and behold, the next day, I've got, I think it's an ad for an ad for the parts with the billboard. Specifically with the billboard, it wasn't. Oh, that's really, yeah, not just cars.
That Alexa, she's listening to you. She's paying attention.
Wow. So yeah, that was a inexpensive.
They were underneath the other thing.
Yeah, but it's running just fine.
It's gonna go at 6:55. Should be going.
Yeah. Open the live stream's working, there's no issues. Also, it shows me the analytics as the stream
I
goes.
thought we were going to be using the town's
It will not stream, except on the town's website, which is fine. Shouldn't be that way.
It is what it is for now.
All right. We should be able to get started.
Yep. Everyone's live, and
Are we starting or?
Well, I think that, yep, it's on now.
yep.
So,
What was
Margie will
yours?
start.
Should it start till 7?
6:56.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Will be just a minute.
How many clock you got over there?
I
Yeah.
would wait, since I'm first, I would request that we wait.
Yeah, and people are still joining the live stream.
Shut out of being on air?
People will be very upset that they missed the first 3 minutes.
Take the first 3 minutes. Where am I looking?
Do I turn my microphone on?
Yes.
Yes. How many people do we have next? But they're lined up to open.
Actually, I don't know. I wasn't told that.
You don't even have to sign in, you just have to go with it.
Oh, on this. We got about 20 people. Yeah, on this. I thought you were talking like outside.
make sure you use the mic.
This is turned on. Do I have to turn it on? Yes.
I think it's on. I don't know if it's on or not.
Now it's on.
Now
Okay.
it's on. And put all your mics on. So
Just
there's a green
keep them
light.
on all the way through.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so, unless you're gonna sneeze.
Or say some dirty word.
I don't know, I'm gonna leave mine on, so.
Yeah, turn mine.
I would suggest to leave them off until you need them.
That's fine.
Yeah, off until you speak, I suppose.
I just might.
Okay.
Yep, we're at 30.
All right,
Good evening. My name is Marty Skinner. I'm a member of the League of Women Voters of Albany County and don't live in the town of Bethlehem. Welcome to this candidate event for those running to become a member of the Bethlehem Town Board. This evening's event is being sponsored by the Bethlehem Chamber of Commerce, the Spotlight News, and the League of Women Voters of Albany County. We wish to give special thanks to the town of Bethlehem for making the town hall available tonight, and to the Spotlight News for live streaming and recording the program for viewing later. There is no audience here this evening out of concern for the health and safety of our candidates and staff and our potential audience. The League is a nonpartisan volunteer citizen organization that promotes the informed and active participation of citizens in government. The League neither supports nor opposes candidates or political parties. The League has a long tradition of sponsoring candidate events to aid in educating the electorate so that on election day, voters will be able to make informed decisions at the polls. This year, the general election is on Tuesday, November 2nd. The polls will be open from 6 a.m. until 9 p.m. Early voting is also available from October 23rd through October 31st. You may also apply for an absentee ballot until October 18th or in person until November 1st. Applications are available online. They can be mailed or handed directly to the Board of Elections on South Pearl Street in Albany. And absentee ballots in Albany County will come with postage for you to enable you to return your ballot easily. For more information about the voting process and about candidates, you can go to the League of Women Voters online voter guide, vote411.org. This will include information from all the candidates who responded to our League queries, including all 4 of these candidates that are here with us this evening. Thank you very much. And also the County and New York State Board of Election website have information as well. You can type in your name and address, and the information for you will come up, in particular where your polling place is and what your ballot will look like. The following ground rules have been agreed upon by the candidates in advance and will govern how we proceed. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement, 1.5 minutes to answer each question, and 1 minute for a closing statement. Each candidate has been given 2 red cards to be used during the question and answer period. Each card will allow 1 minute additional time to either add to the response or to respond to something that another candidate has said. The questions being asked tonight come from the community. Thank you all for sending in questions. The questions have been reviewed for clarity and pertinence to the office, and any personal attacks were discarded. And I want to thank in particular Maureen McGinnis from the Chamber of Commerce, and John McIntyre from the Spotlight, and Ellen Sullivan from the League of Women Voters, who performed this daunting task. As I said, each of the candidates will have up to 1.5 minutes each to answer each question. They will rotate who answers first. They have chosen lots to determine the order of speaking. Our timer will sit in front and give warnings as the time runs out. Our timer is Laura Brignall from the League of Women Voters. This is an informational forum. This year there are 4 candidates running for 2 seats on the Bethlehem Town Board. The term is for 4 years. In an alphabetical order they are James Carriero, Warren Cunningham, David DeCancio, and James Foster. Their lots did not come out. They will not be speaking in that order. They're sitting in the order in which they will be speaking. Also in Bethlehem, you will have 6 questions on your ballot that will be on the other side of the ballot. 5 of them are related to statewide issues that the state legislature has passed and proposed, and 1 is a local issue called the Bethlehem Road Diet. And you will hear a little bit about the Bethlehem Road Diet, I think, in some of the questions and answers tonight. The town board is an elected body that enacts town legislation. It holds hearings and passes resolutions on matters involving town government. It is responsible for adopting the annual budget, adopting and amending the town code, and broadly addressing the issues of concern to the citizens. So this is a time for you to learn about the candidates in order to make an informed decision on November 2nd. I want to thank the candidates in advance for participating in the forum. So now it is time for opening statements of no more than 2 minutes. First, Ms. Cunningham will give an opening statement, followed by Mr. Carriero.
Good morning. That's 1 minute to go. Thank you. Good evening. I'm Maureen Cunningham, and it's been an honor to serve as your town board member for the last 4 years. I'm running for another term because I'd like to build on our successes. In the last 4 years, we launched with public meetings in all 7 hamlets in town the comprehensive plan update process called Bethlehem Forward. We expanded parklands and open spaces by hundreds of acres, purchased a mobile stage for use in all parks. We established a common sense licensing program to ensure vape shops don't end up right next to our schools. We outlined numerous reforms to foster trust between the police and the public, which we're still implementing. I've also secured funding for electric vehicle charging stations with no net capital cost to the town, created a working group on equity and justice, and pushed for more diversity in town government. On top of that, we're a model for the state for our cutting-edge compost and recycling program, our open space initiatives, our micro-enterprise grant program, which is now on its 4th round of funding to support local businesses, our partnership with Del Mar, Bethlehem, EMS, and Albany County to provide top-notch emergency services, especially during COVID, our multi-year budgeting process, and the best credit rating in Albany County. And last but not least, the wind turbine manufacturing site, the first of its kind in the nation, which will create hundreds of jobs. I'm running for re-election so we can continue to be a model of excellence by protecting open spaces and encouraging smart growth, centering equity and justice for all, supporting our local economy, and focusing on clean energy and sustainability, accessible, clean streets, and climate resiliency. I believe deeply in the amazing quality of life and community in Bethlehem, and I'll continue to work for all of these things to be elected into the town board. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Jim Carriero. I'm running for the town board. I would like this opportunity to serve the community and to improve the quality of our lives and the execution of good strategies in our financial as well as our environment, our community. I want to step back for a moment and tell you about my background. I grew up in public housing. I was with people that were poor, they were black, they were Hispanic, they were poor whites. Life was not easy, but I learned to love these people, to work with them, and to enjoy lives that were not common to most people of the community I lived in. Life is difficult, but many people came forward through my life and stepped into it and made sure that they provided me coaching, love, and direction to be the person I've become. If I'm elected as a representative to this community, I would make sure that all of those communities that are surrounding us are given the same opportunities and advantages that I was provided. But it clearly was the free enterprise system that allowed me to prosper as well as a good educational system. I moved to Bethlehem 30 years ago because it was quiet, and that was a value of having lived in a large city that I really did enjoy. We loved it as a family. We grew here and became very close to the community and the people around it. I would hope that you'd have confidence in my ability as a good manager and running a full corporation as a bank in a large city, that you would see my fiscal abilities as well as my track record of dealing with municipalities and governments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Foster?
Good evening, and thank you to the League of Women Voters, the Bethlehem Chamber of Commerce, and the Spotlight News for organizing tonight's forum. For the past 3 years and change, I've had the honor of serving our community in my hometown on the town board. At any given time, most of us have one boss, maybe a few. I've had the pleasure and great responsibility of reporting to over 35,000 bosses. I report to each and every one of you, and I do not take that responsibility lightly. It is a duty and a privilege to listen to and serve the entire community. Not just a select few, not just the loudest voices, not just the most popular. We may agree or we may disagree, but we must always listen to one another. I am listening, and I hear you, and I always will. I proved this when I broke ranks with the rest of the board and instead listened to you, the residents, successfully leading the effort to save our cherished dive pool. Our differences enrich and make Bethlehem better. Our town would be a horribly boring place if we were all the same or agreed all the time. During my time on the board, I have enjoyed the opportunity to hear from and chat with many of you, forming many friendships along the way. You have generously shared your thoughts, ideas, criticisms, and concerns with me. I appreciate them all. Bethlehem is better than party politics, or at least it should be. Rest assured there is reason for hope. I see it every day. I see it in the kindness of helping neighbors. I see it at community fundraisers and sporting events. I see it working with our first responders and volunteer fireworks. I see it in the care and dedication of our town employees. Time and time again, it has been proven to me that we are all better when we do not assume the worst about one another. We are better when we judge based on one's character, not one's labels. That's why I invite you to get to know me, Jim Foster, a little better as a person. I invite you to inquire into my character and why I love Bethlehem so much. If you do, I think you will conclude, like many of your neighbors from all backgrounds and political affiliations, that I'm the type of person who want to continue to serve you and our community on the town board. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. DeCancio?
Good evening. My name is David DeCancio. I'm a proud father of 2 smart, strong, and beautiful young ladies, and husband to Christine, who grew up here in Delmar. Like so many, we choose to start our family here because of the amazing quality of life our town provides. In no small part thanks to so many neighbors who volunteer countless hours at various community groups and our schools. I believe to know who I am, I need to tell you a little bit about my upbringing. My parents are Cuban refugees who came to this country with simply a bag of 2 outfits, speaking no English. They persevered through so much to give my brother and I a better life. Every day I do my best to honor those sacrifices. My mother instilled in me a need to give back, repay your community, our country, for the hope and opportunity it afforded our family. It is this sense of duty and service that has fueled my volunteerism, which was recognized by the Bethlehem Chamber with their Community Spirit Award. Through my 2 decades of volunteer work, I have built lasting relationships with so many wonderful people from all walks of life. And these relationships have shown me that despite our different zip codes and ideologies, we all have one thing in common: Bethlehem, and how we all want our town to be the best place to live, raise kids, pursue our dreams, own a small business, and retire. Earlier this year, I realized that volunteerism alone isn't enough, and that I can do more to serve. Our community needs a partner, someone who will bring people together and always put the best interests of our families over one's self-interest or politics. As a parent, I worry about our family's safety and well-being. I know many seniors living on fixed incomes worry about being able to stay close to their families and grandkids. And I understand the challenges our small businesses face and the importance of doing what we can to ensure that they can thrive. By working together, we will ensure our community grows stronger for generations to come. These are my priorities.
Thank you. Now it's time for the questions from the audience. I'll read the questions and Mr. Carriero will answer first. This is the first question. What is your plan to help preserve farms, woodlands, and other open spaces in Bethlehem?
I would suggest that there are state strategies that have been developed to provide tax benefits to farms and open land so that they can be preserved by families. Unfortunately, in our community, because of a reassessment, their taxes were raised substantially to the point where most of those farms are being sold. The people that own them don't have the income from farming to substantiate them. So I would suggest that in our community, a reassessment has to be done to bring those taxes down for those farms so that we don't lose the last few that we've got.
Thanks. All right, Mr. Foster?
Yeah, this is an issue that's very close to home for me. I'm very proud to be the grandson of farmers. We still have about 110 acres in Columbia County that my grandmother still resides on. And she's been able to hold on to that land and keep it in the family because of manageable taxes and proudly keeping that land productive and farming, hopefully for future generations. It's a challenge, and I think the best stewards of farmland in our community are the farmers themselves and the private citizens. When we make that economically not viable, whether it be through taxes or other means, that's a challenge, and those farmers are going to be forced to sell. A lot of farmers look to their farmland as their retirement, and invariably that results in selling to developers or other people that are going to develop that land for other purposes. So the town has undertaken efforts to step in and fill the void, and establishing the Farms and Forest Fund was one of those. But that alone will not do it. It's very little money in that fund currently, and I think we really need to look to partner with willing landowners and have them identify for themselves viable options going forward, whether it be agritourism or continuing to look at creative solutions to keep the land. But I'm not looking for the government to provide most of those solutions. If anything, I'm looking for the government to be a partner with private citizens on how they manage their existing farmland and keep it farmland.
Okay, thanks. Mr. DeCancio?
Yes, to preserve open farms and woodlands and other open spaces, I think we need to take an assessment of the town code and programs surrounding development and see how they can be either amended or changed. I believe we need to become more actively engaged with local farmers and large landowners to bring them more into the conversation up front, early, and constant, so we can expand agricultural opportunities to help them thrive and or create new economic opportunities that maybe that they haven't thought of. What I would like to do is I would like to facilitate meetings that would include local farmers, large landowners, the New York State Department of Agriculture, and Empire State Development Corporation, so we can learn more about the programs and initiatives available for agribusiness and so much more. You know, this is an opportunity too where I believe we should build on public-private partnerships. How can we work together to expand open space, recreational opportunities, and agribusiness for our town?
Thanks. Ms. Cunningham?
I also descend from former farmers in New York State. I think the first hop farmers, or one of the first in New York State. But I don't pretend that I know what the issues are that they're facing. So number one, we need to hire an open space coordinator. We had a fantastic one. The position is being filled, but we need to do that as soon as possible because that position is conducting outreach to landowners, listening to landowners, and really getting the pulse of what's going on in town in addition to the town board. Innovation. I think we need to continue thinking about innovative strategies like we've done in the last few years with the Farms and Forest Fund, with the Conservation Easement program. Partnerships are key, and in recent years we've partnered with the Mohawk Hudson Land Conservancy, including purchasing 21 acres at Henry Hudson Park recently. We've also partnered with the Albany Land Bank in purchasing another acreage off of Wemple Road. And lastly, we need to ensure that our comp plan finishes with a bang because we need a solid comprehensive plan and begin moving into zoning and code changes that will protect smaller streams and wetlands that are currently unprotected, and additional green infrastructure and other open space measures.
Thanks. Next question. Slightly different.
an excellent question. I think right now the biggest impediment to affordable housing is the residential building moratorium, which the board voted, which I voted against, while the rest of the board voted in favor of. That building moratorium stalled pending affordable housing projects, along with the majority of other residential development projects in Bethlehem. That is still the case. The period for that moratorium is a whole year, and currently under contemplation is extending that moratorium for an additional 6 months. And that impact is not just on the existing affordable housing project that was in the pipeline. It also trickles in effects of every project that's been pending and likely future projects. We talk about affordable housing in Bethlehem. However, when you start the process, the holding costs, the developers are still paying property taxes on those properties that they can't do anything with. That through the integration of the moratorium. So those costs are not going to be incurred by the developer. They're ultimately going to be passed on to the end user. And who's the end user? It's the renter, it's the homeowner that purchases those units or resides in those units in the future. So when we talk as public officials and public candidates about what we're going to do about affordable housing, we need to look from top to bottom on how we truly make that happen. And it starts with our policies with the planning board. If it's going to be death by 1,000 paper cuts that add $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 each time that engineering work has to be redone, those costs get passed on. So we need to look at that to address affordable housing.
Thank you. Mr. DeCancio?
Thank you. I believe, affordable housing must be addressed in the comprehensive plan that's being put forth today, being put together right now. It's vital that it's done properly. I believe, we build a stronger sense of community when affordable housing is available for everyone, especially our grandparents and our young adults and young professionals. The increasing cost of housing makes it more and more difficult for seniors to find affordable options to live here in Bethlehem so they can stay close to their families and their grandkids. It's difficult for young professionals just starting out to try and stay here in our town and build their own sense of community. But I do believe affordable housing is a vital prong in creating a more vibrant and sustainable community. But that takes other prongs. It takes connectivity with sidewalks that people can walk to and from, restaurants, entertainment, places of employment. And also it takes mass transit. We got to have options for our seniors and our young professionals. I believe they want to live in a place where they can walk to everything. They can walk to pick up their prescriptions. And that's key. I think when we talk about affordable housing too, we need to be careful because I think sometimes some of the language that's used sometimes is not inclusive. And it portrays affordable housing as something that's not good. I mean, if your rent is about 30% of your annual income, that's not affordable. So we have to understand that. And that's what we're trying to solve. And I think on the town board, I do want to take a comprehensive look at this and see how we can work with builders to make this, a reality.
Thank you. Ms. Cunningham?
I believe housing is a human right. Studies have shown that communities that embrace diversity and inclusion rather than exclusion are better positioned for growth, innovation, and creativity. I believe that being inclusive in our zoning and practice is essential to becoming a welcoming community that we want to be. I agree with David DeCancio that the comprehensive plan update, which is currently underway, is really critical to ensuring that affordable housing is built into the plan. We heard overwhelmingly from our 7 public meetings around town leading up to the comprehensive plan that affordable housing was a key issue, not just limited to seniors, but for all residents who are concerned with this issue. So I believe we should create housing that's affordable in a wide variety of price points. We should build housing stock with diverse forms to respond to current and future needs. And lastly, avoiding sprawl and overdevelopment in our rural areas to create a more dense development and direct development to our more densely populated urban centers, if you can call it that, with infrastructure and transportation and other amenities.
Thank you. Mr. Carriero.
So the community has had a tremendous growth in financial institutions moving to Bethlehem. And I think there's an opportunity here to, with government leading the process with them, to come up with strategies to increase the funding the availability of making exceptions for a community plan. But understand, major banks have what are called tax credits, and they will sell those to investors who invest in affordable housing. It's going to require that government become much more aware of that process in order to lead it in our community. But with the growth of financial institutions here and the interest from investors in these tax credits, I think we have the opportunity to have appropriate growth guided by good plan from our government, but it will require leadership.
Thank you. Okay, now the next question, I told you you wouldn't get any easy yes, no, so I'm combining a couple of questions. It's not a big deal. We're talking about the road diet, all right? Proposition 6 is a vote on funding for complete streets engineering study and construction. Will you vote yes on Prop 6 and support funding for complete streets? And then, what's your position on the 2-1-1 compromise solution for the road diet? Okay, is that okay to combine those two? All right, and the first person on this one is Mr. Cancio.
Yes, yes, I will be supporting the bond vote, because that vote is specifically about, can the town issue the bonds to leverage state and federal dollars for a grant that they won. This is money that if we don't take it, it's going to go to Buffalo, it's going to go to New York City, it's going to go to Texas, it's going to go to Florida. So I think it's important that we utilize that, because I think one thing we can all agree upon, Delaware Avenue needs to be redone. Now, how that should look, that is up to the community. I am a firm believer in allowing the community to have their voices heard. We need to listen to our businesses. These are the same businesses that, you know, for 20 years I've been reaching out to them and asking them to donate and support our youth programs, BOU, First Night Bethlehem. You know, these are people that support our youth programs and our youth sports teams. I don't want to hurt them. You know, what I want to do is be a partner with them, and I want to make sure their concerns are heard. And the way we do that is by listening to each other, and let's take a look, and let's see what the best options are. I would love to actually for the chamber to take the lead and take businesses, local officials, community residents. Let's go to other Manans, Latham, or other road diets and complete streets projects that happened. Let's hear from them, from their businesses. What did it mean to them? What would they do differently? What would they do better? Let's actually hear some actual granular, information from them. Not just everybody, having an opinion.
Thank you. Ms. Cunningham?
I believe we need to build a future based on where we want to be, not based on a road that was established in 1950. And I think to do this, I will be voting yes on Prop 6 for complete streets. I believe that this complete streets model will be safer for all sorts of users, from people on bikes, on cars, on foot, school children, people with disabilities, elderly, people taking public transit, and I want to build that road to be safe for all of those people. I do want to echo what David said, that I will be listening as part of the next steps. If this project moves forward, we will be doing engineering and design work that includes studying the effects of the Complete Streets project, all different forms. And I will be looking, like everybody else, at the results of those studies. I do support Complete Streets as a model, so barring any adverse effects that we see that come out of the engineering and design study, I would support the Complete Streets model.
I would vote no on the proposition. The strategy that's been used has disqualified an awful lot of people that have very vested interest in efficient street. But the consequence of not having compromises to the process has resulted in many very diverse opinions. There's already been decisions made about what is required or requested by the town, their proposal, federal and state money. I would suggest that the compromise would be the alternative, which is the 2-1-1. So, there's my position.
Okay, great. Mr. Faulkner?
Sure, I too would be voting no on the Proposition 6. And among the reasons why, I I have absolutely no confidence whatsoever, based on the 5 years of the process I've seen to date, that all three options, as we undertake additional engineering work, should the funds be appropriated as part of that financing, will in fact be given due and honest consideration. I think it's already been determined. We've seen engineering work that the feasibility study is prepared by a firm that arguably has a dog in the fight, because they are probably going to be bidding on the engineering work for the project to be proposed and implemented in the first place. So it doesn't take rocket scientists to say that, am I going to say a project's feasible when I'm probably going to be bidding on the project in the future? Obviously, there's a stake in the game there. Additionally, I would be open to the 2-1-1. My concern goes back to the proposition, though, is that I don't think the 2-1-1 will be given a fair shake. I think it's always going to be the full road diet, and we've seen it throughout the process. I had proposed putting this matter to a referendum, and not a single one of my colleagues on the board wanted the voters to act directly on this matter. Instead, it was up to the public and the businesses to organize, to collect the requisite number of signatures, to have a voice in this matter. There was a lot of showmanship about these forums and public participation, but when it came to the public actually coming out and trying to participate, this board wanted to shut them down. I don't want that at all.
Okay, Ms. Cunningham has put up a red card to have, she has 1 minute on responding to that.
I think the truth has been misrepresented by my colleague. I think when we first launched this process years ago, there were literally hundreds of people involved in the process as we got started. I think to suggest that we're not being honest in the approach is not fair. I've never not been honest in my 4 years on the town board, and for that matter, honesty is something I value in my life and career. I think to vote down the proposition is turning down $4.5 million of state and federal money to improve a road that desperately needs to be improved is a mistake. I think we're going to find out a lot more in the design and engineering phases, and we need to find out more. And like I asked a business owner recently, is it possible this is a great idea for Bethlehem and could revolutionize our downtown area and bring people in? Yes, and I think we need to explore that possibility.
That's your minute. I see Mr. Foster has put up a red card.
Yes, I just want to address a couple things. The history of the project. I've been paying attention for the better part of 5 years, if not more. And when this was first proposed under Supervisor Clarkson, he had pitched the idea as possibly maybe just requiring a little painting and restriping of the roadway. We're now talking about a $5.2 million project. And I hear everyone here talking about the state and federal funding, but I've yet to hear somebody address the town's portion of the funding. And we've seen this as well in the rhetoric that there's error by omission or attempt to mislead by omission, in not mentioning the $728,000 responsibility that's planned for the project. These things often run more expensive than anticipated, but as it stands today, the town would be on the hook for $728,000. I think that money could be invested much better in other areas, parks, critical services, things that we can do. So to that end, I think that we need to reevaluate this project. And I also have some serious safety concerns. I've talked to professional cyclists that talk that this design is incongruent with a roadway that has this number of curb cuts. It's courting disaster, and I'm critically concerned about cyclist safety.
I told you you'd learn more about Prop 6 in Bethlehem as we had our thing. Oh, another red card. Okay, Mr. Carriero.
So one of the other concerns I have about this is the diversion of traffic. When you take 18,000 cars a day and you divert them by limiting the size of the street, the result's going to be that our small town streets like Kenwood Avenue are going to be experiencing extreme increases in traffic usage. I don't think they're built for that, and I think it's going to become an invasion of automobiles in parts of the community where they're not going to be able to handle it or have the capacity for it.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to the next question. And Ms. Cunningham, you'll answer this one first. And it continues the traffic question, but it gets out of the corridor. How would you address the widespread increase in traffic congestion in the town beyond the Delaware Avenue corridor and Glen Miles?
When I the first town committee I was ever on was the Bike and Pedestrian Committee, and we talked a lot about different methods to calm traffic. That's the question, right? To calm traffic, and it requires a multi-pronged approach that includes education to drivers about driving slower and about driving through neighborhoods. It includes engineering and traffic calming measures like putting street trees on the side of the street. Everybody reacts and wants to put a stop sign in, but if you talk to any traffic experts, there's other calming measures that need to be put in place through engineering. On my street, they actually narrowed the turning path, which drastically slowed down traffic on my particular road. And then, of course, enforcement, and that's a partnership we have with the police department to ensure that they're also enforcing safety. I hope with the American Rescue Funds we can invest in sidewalks, sidewalk maintenance, and additional studies like on Kenwood Ave to improve safety on that road in particular. I've heard a lot of recent complaints.
Thanks. Okay, Mr. Carriero?
Clearly, traffic calming is going to have to be an essential part of what we do as our population has shifted. Yet, the facts are that calming has not been working to the degree that we would like to see. The concern has been the recent accidents that we're seeing on our streets. Bicycles having accidents with automobiles too close to the road, etc. So I think it's going to have to be more of a more traditional approach, which is enforcement of speed limits, and by use of our proper use of our police force, we could bring some of this down, as well as limiting the speed that's allowed on many of our roads.
Thank you. Mr. Foster?
I think we need to take a number of different approaches, and I think we all too often focus on the heart of Del Mar. Obviously, Old Del Mar and the Four Corners area is important, as is the Delaware Avenue corridor, but we also need to look across our entire 52 square mile community. And as a first responder, I've been to numerous serious car accidents on River Road, but I just felt never hear Town Hall discussing safety issues or concerns about River Road. I think we need to consider why that is. And in addition to this too, on Delaware Avenue, I proposed approaching state DOT and requesting a reduction in the posted speed limit sign as a incremental step in one small prominent approach to make that road safer and more pedestrian friendly and result in traffic calming. But I was summarily rejected by my colleagues on the board. That's disappointing. I think we need to look at all different options available to us rather than just one silver bullet that we think is going to accomplish everything. So we need to use the full panoply of tools available to us to address traffic calming across our entire community. We reduced the speed limit, for example, on the Cherry Avenue extension. And I've noticed, at least anecdotally, a reduction in speeds. We have some traffic data. Unfortunately, it's a little bit not quite apples to apples because maybe those were collected at different times from the baselines or at different locations. So I think, but there's still potential there. And so we need to look at various options. And I think the Glenmont Roundabout is going to do a great thing there.
Sorry. Mr. DeCancio.
Yes, thank you. That's okay. So yes, I do agree with Jim on this. Like, we have to look at the entire town. As someone who moved from Ellesmere Avenue, we moved to the Selkirk area, 20 years ago. I've noticed a big change in traffic on 9W. I used to go down that road and it was pretty easy going. Now on Saturday morning, especially after soccer, it is difficult. It is, it's very frustrating. You sit in that corner of Freerbush and 9W and sit there for a while. The roundabout is a great initiative that's going to help alleviate that. I trust the engineers are designing things that are going to work. I think traffic and speed, though, is another thing. It's the neighborhoods. I mean, more and more. I mean, when I moved into our development was being built, I raised concerns about speed and along the long road of Silver Creek and how they had a blind turn. And I wrote letters to DOT about stop signs and mitigation aspects, and I learned a lot more than I probably should have. But what I'd like to see done, especially in neighborhoods, is let's create pilot programs all around town in different neighborhoods that are seeking lower speeds. Let's try road calming options in different communities. Let's see what actually works. Let's take some actual data that we're collecting and see if it does slower speeds. I believe that we need to, do everything we possibly can, and to lower speed limits on a state road. The legislature, that takes state legislative approval and approval by the governor, which is going to be very difficult. We know firsthand.
Next question. A couple that are going to move into the realm of the police in Bethlehem. The first one, the town of Bethlehem has increased crime activity such as car break-ins, vandalism, bike path assaults. What do you propose to address this? And Mr. Carriero, you're first up.
So the reality is that the world has changed. For a number of reasons. We've seen, I think, an effect of the pandemic. And the concern is that our police department is not up to full staff. I think the first step is allow the new chief who's made these recommendations to implement, and don't allow the political process to stand in the way. If we trust this person, and we know they are of good judgment, and the board has voted to endorse that, then we should implement what she's asking us to do. Bring the police force up to the budget numbers that have been proposed and accepted by the board, and allow her and the police force to do their job. Number two is that sometimes we second guess ourselves a bit too much. The supervisor enforced a process the governor requested to put a committee together to study our police force. And they've come up with recommendations. I say let's implement the recommendations. They're not all easy and they're not all likable, but this group worked hard to come up with solutions. And I think they're being frauded in their effort to do so. Again, for political reasons and not for logical reasons. The committee was formed by the supervisor. They came up with solutions. Let's implement them.
Thanks. Mr. Foster?
Yeah, I think it's a complex problem, obviously, but let's just address what we can do in Bethlehem to address it, because I think there are statewide issues that also play into this as well. But with our community police, we need to have their back and fully support them and provide them with the resources to provide community policing, enforcement, and address crime. I mean, personally, I've had my car rummaged through in the middle of the night. You need only go to next door and read the comments. On a weekly basis, you'll have reports of criminal activity, things of that nature. And then you have those really concerning reports that 74-year-old gentleman walking from the rail trail or coming off the rail trail that was physically assaulted. That's scary. I mean, I think all of our first reaction when you're thinking about our parents, our grandparents, our loved ones, we want them to be safe when they're on the rail trail. I give kudos to our police chief and police force for looking at additional options. For example, officers on bicycles that can be out in the community and on the rail trail in other areas. The problem is once you take an officer out of a patrol car and onto a bicycle, they're unavailable to respond to a medical emergency or call for help elsewhere in the community because they can't hop into a police vehicle and respond as quickly as they might otherwise would. So again, that's a staffing issue. So we need to support that and provide those resources to make community policing continue to be more robust and effective at that.
Okay, thanks. Mr. DeCancio?
Yes, as a father of two daughters, I'm committed to working with our Bethlehem PD to ensure the safety and well-being of our families. There's nothing more important to any one of us in this room or this town. That being said, I do believe while there have been, spikes in cases and here and there, at the end of the day, I still do believe we have a safe community and a safe town. We want people to understand that. And we need to provide our police department with as much assistance as possible. I'd like to see maybe if there is an issue with staffing and having enough police officers, have we reached out to the county sheriff, Doug Apple? Can they provide assistance? Can they do certain patrols in certain areas to free up some of our officers? We have to be creative here. We have to be be willing to change how things have been done in the past. Putting more cops on bikes on the rail trail, that's a county trail. So I believe it should be up to the county to provide the actual law enforcement on that path. So, you know, let's work with them. Let's work with Dan McCoy and Sheriff Apple. But like I said, I'm willing to look at options. I think we all have to be open to seeing what we can do differently to make sure, and we have to provide more things for our kids to do. One thing our town lacks is things for our teenagers to do. We need to address that as well.
Thanks. Ms. Cunningham?
Clearly, crime is also linked to a lot of socioeconomic issues, evictions, housing, affordable housing, social services, and we've been in this country through an enormously difficult time, and we see this playing out around the country. That said, I fully support the Bethlehem Police Department. They were a partner in the police reform and reinvention collaborative. There were something like 10 or 15 meetings over last winter, 2 to 3 hours each that we attended over Zoom to support police reforms. We've continually voted on hiring police officers throughout this year, and the town board, myself included, has been supportive of this. And we also have, I want to mention, it is one of the reforms from the report that I'm helping to implement. It's a partnership with the Albany County Crisis Officials Responding and Diverting Support Court Program, which is based on the police program in Oregon, which is a mobile crisis intervention program using mental health professionals with nonviolent mental illness calls. We're working with the Albany County Sheriff to use that service in Bethlehem. We requested it. Two of us from the Police Reform and Reinvention Collaborative went to the police chief who brought in the sheriff and introduced this program. It's a great program, and it focuses on this, the mental health calls that we're receiving in Bethlehem.
Thank you. Okay, now this is kind of a wide open. Real change happens at the local level. Name 2 concrete actions that you will commit in order to strengthen relations with the other side of the political aisle. Mr. Foster, you get to take this one first.
Sure. I think, looking at this issue, this is something I've been working on my entire life. But one memory that comes fondly to the forefront of my mind is thinking of the political debates I would have over my freshman year college roommate. And we couldn't be further on the political spectrum. But him on the bottom bunk, me on the top bunk, we would debate until the wee hours in the morning. And then we'd wake up and we'd go to the cafeteria together and laugh and joke. We got along so but we disagreed more often than we agreed. And you know what? We chose to live together for 4 years, all 4 years at college. So I think that tells you something. I'm happy and willing to talk about the issues, debate them, discuss them. I bring that to the table. I always offer that to the table. What is concerning is when people don't want to hear different viewpoints or different views, or they don't want to discuss them, or they view it as an attack merely because we make it on the issues. I'll continue to bring that open and honest approach to things in that discourse, respectful discourse, so we can continue the dialogue. So that's the first thing that I want to commit to. The second thing that I think we all need to commit to, including members of the town board, are more affirmatively reaching out to the other side, right? I think all too often we surround ourselves in an echo chamber, and I think just because of limitations on time, I certainly am guilty of it, as I think we all are, where you hear the people that reach out and that agree with you, and you don't do enough to reach out to the other side and positively pull opposing views or disagreeing views. So I'll commit to doing more to hear the other side and further reach out to them.
Thanks, Mr. Campia.
Yes, as I said before, I believe our community needs a partner. Someone who will bring people together. As a town board member, I'll work for, with, and alongside every single one of you to make sure that Bethlehem is a community we can all be proud to call home. To move us forward, I'm committed to ensuring everyone's voices is heard and respected, but also and considered. Because at the end of the day, it's always better, it's always more important to get it right than to be right. You know, we have to listen to understand each other. You know, we all care about this community. We all want what's best for our families and our children. And if we start there, I know we can do great things. I've seen it. I've seen, like I said before, working with volunteers from all across town. I've built relationships with people that we are ideologically very different. But you know what? We became friends. We have relationships because we care about this community. And I know if I can build on that and continue building it, we can make sure, and I challenge everybody, let's make sure everyone that lives in our town feels like they are part of our community. And that starts with listening and respecting each other.
It's a good question, and I'm glad it's been brought up. I think it's been a tough year with COVID and social media, and I think it's been great for a lot of us on the town board and throughout town working on civil discourse that I know we're all capable of. So the first thing I'll do is maybe get off social media so much, because I do believe that sometimes people use that instead of talking face to face, and I think it has consequences. You can see that right now. I think project is there for local businesses, and I know a lot of local businesses support it. That said, I know there's a lot of local businesses that are interested, so I commit, obviously, is happen to meetings with those businesses and some of the data studies comes out to understand their perspective, to understand the challenges they face, and to see if there's ways we can build more support for local businesses through the funds we get from the federal government and through whatever design we move forward with the complete streets. I also commit to we're hiring a new open space coordinator, and I think the sky's the limit in the innovation we can think about for open space in town, but I think sometimes the landowners in town, I'm friends with a few of them, feel like they're on the other side. So I commit to meeting with them and hearing them out as we introduce this new open space coordinator.
Great. And Mr. Carriero?
A difficult question. First of all, though, I have to agree, social media has become very destructive. Where one person could hijack a conversation and impress and have a very negative impact on a community is frightening to me. So I would just say we have to be very careful with social media, and maybe it's even time to back away from it. The other part of the story is that I think we have a very fervent group of people here who believe in the environment. And it's time that we recognize that and begin to implement the changes that would be one where we have to reach both sides. Republicans have traditionally not taken a very aggressive stance, but I believe that it's time we look at our environment. We say our streetlights, for example, should be converted. And we should say, to reduce the cost of energy and the use of energy, it's time to do that. We have one traffic light in town that is using 6,000 gallons of fuel a year because of its delays. The second thing I would do with the other side is to say, it's time we recognize that heating a garage for trucks at a cost of $7,000 a month in the highway department is outrageous. We're burning hydrocarbons. Can't we sit down and work that out as a community and say, it's not logical. We should be conserving, not burning hydrocarbons. So I would say there's a number of issues like that that we should be able to work with and cross the aisle.
Thank you. Okay, next question. And there was a social media question, but I'm skipping over it since some of you dealt with it already, and I think it's kind of dealt with it. So I'm going to move on to local businesses, which are also bringing up. In your view, what role do locally owned and operated small businesses play in the character and livability of a town like Bethlehem? And Mr. McCancio, you're first on this one.
Oh, they are vital. They are, they're everything to our community. I mean, like I said before, I mean, these are the same businesses that I 20 plus years I've been reaching out to them, and they support all of our youth programs and community efforts and community, fundraisers, from like car washes from sports teams to, different fundraising efforts. We need to make sure that their voices are heard, and that we hear them, and that we can provide all kinds of assistance possible. But you know what? We need to make sure that the town, we do as a government, we ensure that they can thrive. And there's certain things we can do. We can work collaboratively with our partners at the state and county level. But more importantly, you know what? I encourage everyone to shop local and buy local. And my campaign is using all businesses that are right here in the town of Bethlehem. Because I believe you don't just talk the talk, you gotta walk the walk. My signs are made here by a small business here in town. My mail is, and my literature is produced here. Because I think actions speak louder than words. Let's make sure that we support their local businesses with our actual pocketbooks, not just with our words.
Thank you.
As I mentioned in my opening statement, Bethlehem is now on its fourth round of micro enterprise grants. We just received $200,000 from the state this summer. I was really proud a couple years ago before COVID to go to one of the micro enterprise events where they showcased all the local businesses that have been supported by these funds. At this event, a state representative for the funds, and Bethlehem is actually becoming a model for the state in small business development and local business growth. And I'm really proud of that. I think we continue to keep that going. I think we should, and we absolutely have to. I think buying local, as David alluded to, is part of a cleaner, greener future, because as we create more walkable and bikeable places, which attracted many of us to the town in the first place, we can support those local businesses. As I mentioned earlier, would definitely be open to meeting with more businesses in my second term. I didn't say this in the last question, but my door is always open. I know that's no one has doors anymore in office, but I would, provide my cell phone. I meet with people for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for my town board work, and I'm happy to hear from local businesses how we can support them more. Lastly, I will say that some of the American Rescue Funds, those other funds we can support. She would love to. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Guerriero?
Well, it's quite unfortunate to go down Delaware Avenue and see the number of businesses that are what we've taken in a devastating blow here. And although the micro grant funds are good, $200,000 is not going to save the businesses on Delaware Avenue. They are suffering. The evidence of that is to see the empty stores, the loss of Peter Harris and others. It's a frightening development. So I think it has to be more significant than that. Coming from banking, we were posed often with these challenges where a community was dying, we had to figure out ways to help. You have many financial institutions here. We have many people that are well-trained, well-educated. This is a bigger problem than you realize. Why is it every day in my neighborhood there are 3 big trucks delivering stuff from Amazon? We're not buying local. 3 trucks delivering the environment as they run through the houses. I have to tell you, it's time that we change our attitude. If you want these businesses here, it's time to step up and change our attitudes. And you can't do that by saying it's going to the local person and then we're going to the cars and say so my intention is we need to have a special initiative that's working to study this to develop our solution.
Having been born and raised in Bethlehem, I have great affinity and connection with our local business community. My fondest memories as a little kid playing on little league teams, going up against Delmar Car Wash one week and bagels the next. So it's really, they're really the core of the change. And what programs all the things. So, also, the economy and also the violence. Unfortunately, New York business are successful, they're successful despite that. And I think, I have the luxury and the privilege of advising for small businesses, clients, and attorney. And I think working on clients and deal with requirements that business owner has on the day-to-day, that's not even mentioned in the process. So, we need to do it. a little while there are limits to what the government can do. We all just say that we're ready to expect it.
Switches from small local businesses. In your view, what role do manufacturing and large-scale businesses play in the character and livability of a town like Bethlehem? So, Ms. Cunningham, you go first on this.
I was very fortunate to get a tour of the wind turbine manufacturing site in Bethlehem a few months ago with my colleagues from the town board. I think clean energy, and this is actually very emblematic of what's to come, is the future. And this wind turbine manufacturing site, which I mentioned in my opening statement, is the first of its kind in the country. And right now, there's permitting going on up and down the East Coast for wind energy. So we are sitting with an incredible opportunity. The port of Albany, which is in this portion in Bethlehem, is an incredible place for manufacturing. The wind turbine manufacturing said they would bring in, over the next 2 years, 500 construction jobs and 350 manufacturing jobs. But in addition to that, they're bringing in other manufacturing. When I asked them why Bethlehem, they literally said because of your town leaders. They mentioned Ron Leslie and Rory from the planning board by name, and they said they made it so easy for us. So we're going to continue doing that and bringing businesses like the wind turbine and other clean energy as much as possible. And I think this is a huge opportunity, and I'd love to explore it in my next 4 years. Thank you.
Thanks. Mr. Carriero?
The large industrial base of our community has really not been utilized to its best advantage. And clearly it's time for government to sit down with them and see what more we could do together to either grow their businesses here or improve their relationship with us. They have tried to make contributions to us, and that has been rejected. They have tried to work with us in different ways. It's time that we take a more open position about those large corporate partners. They bring a lot of experience from other communities that they're in and where there may be more progressive approaches to business and relationships in government. The leaders in those companies are usually very well trained in how to deal with communities. I think there's more opportunity to work with them and grow our community in a more positive way.
Thanks. Mr. Foster?
Yeah, and this goes back to an earlier point I was making. And it's a challenge because large corporate, in manufacturing businesses, industrial, light industrial, whatever the case may be, even large commercial businesses, whether we're talking about call centers, at the end of the day, they're looking at the balance sheet. And they're looking at serving whether it be shareholders or the employees of the company, but it comes down to dollars and cents. And if there are economic impediments in friendlier areas, whether it be throughout the state or outside the state, more likely than not, those jobs are going elsewhere, and they're not coming here. So we're already well behind the game here in New York with those impediments. So we need to think on a town level what we can do to address those challenges. And that's a big hurdle. And do I have all the solutions? No. I think if we had all the solutions right now, we'd see a vibrant Vista Tech Park. We don't have a Vista Tech Park. Far from it. And those are some of the issues that we're dealing with. And during the same tour that Maureen and I went on, obviously that's a great project, and it's something that's going to be very good for our community. And that was something somewhat unique where we had a port facility that could support that. But we also need to look at, there's a huge need for warehousing space throughout the area. And I think that's another opportunity where in areas that are appropriate in town where we can have an opportunity to provide that storage space that will provide construction jobs and jobs going forward.
Thanks. Mr. DeCancio?
Yes. No, this comes down to a very simple thing, the right development in the right places. This comp plan that we're going to be putting together is going to be lay out a plan. You know, we need to expand our tax base. You know, that's a fact. You know, so what I believe, we have a great quality of life here in our town. You know, our proximity to the highways is tremendous. You know, I believe we need to take a more proactive approach. I believe our town's economic development office, while they are great, they're not proactive enough. I think we need to be working with Empire State Development Corporation, our state elected leaders. Let's say, these are the kind of, we want warehouses. We're looking for this kind of manufacturing in this part of town. Do you have something in the pipeline? Is there someone, do you have a lead that you can give us? You know, I believe it's going to take a little more proactiveness, because there is an attractiveness to our community where businesses are going to want to come here and settle here, because employees are going to have great schools. They're going to have tremendous, you know, access to the Adirondacks, to Boston, to New York. They're centrally located. So I think part of it is, what can we do to make sure we have a town code that is friendly, that is, make sure that development is done right, the right way, but also one that, you know, we go out and we find the businesses we want to bring here. I think that's the most important thing here, is working with our state partners to try and leverage their resources and their expertise to find us and land us more, you know, employers like that. But we also need to make sure that those jobs are, you know, are good paying jobs.
I think there's a typo here. It said the town of Bethlehem is 25 square miles. You said 52? 52 it is, okay. Current town board members live within 1 mile of the four corners. You support a town board ward system for town representation, or you like to keep the seats at large. And Leslie James Carriero, it's your first shot.
I'll show you how to say that thing later so that you'll remember. So the answer to this is really that a ward system would be fairer to the people that live outside of the center of the building. I often hear people say when I was in business, well, you live in Delmar. Actually, I do. I live in Glenmont. But the whole world, in our definition, seems to believe that the center of the universe is Delmar. It is not. It's Selkirk, it's Glenmont, it's 6 hamlets. So I would suggest to you that it's time that our political structure reflects the fact that we have citizens outside of Delmar, and that those people should have similar access to government and the ability to vote on their representatives who might better represent their interests. So I would strongly urge a ward system.
Okay, Mr. Foster?
Yeah, I too think that there's great value in a warrant system. I think if we're going to invest in the additional legwork, which I certainly am, we can connect with our community, all 52 square miles of it. I see it, and you know, but a lot of the times we don't hear, you know, if residents on Delaware Avenue or in Old Delmar. I remember there was a time before Old Delmar was Delmar. It was just Delmar, but anyway. The traffic concerns, they may have never heard of the truck traffic along Maple Avenue, for example, down in Selkirk. So that's something that may not even be on voters' radar, and it's an issue that may never rise to the fore, because if there's just this hegemonic view or a group that's purely representing one particular hamlet, those issues may be drowned out. With that said, I always strive to listen to everybody and take each concern as seriously as the next, regardless of where anybody's located. I've got good friends and colleagues all throughout town, and I think we're better and richer for it. So I think at the end of the day, I too would support a ward system to provide greater representation and reflect the full diversity, the wonderful diversity of our community, as well as all the challenges and unique challenges that each hamlet has and issues that report to them.
Thanks. Mr. DePancio?
Yes, the fact is 9 out of the 10 town elected officials all reside in Delmar. You know, that is frustrating to many people outside of Delmar. While I was on the zoning board of appeals, and I used to go to site visits, whether they be down in Selkirk or up in North Bethlehem, I wish I had a nickel for every time I heard, here comes the guy here comes the Delmar, tell me what I can and cannot do with my property. And I always would say, I'm actually from Selkirk. And, it's not fair. And I agree, the perception. I believe, should the voters want that? I fully support a referendum that decides, does the town want to move to that system? I fully believe in providing voters with access, to the opportunity to put what they want on the ballot. I don't believe in restricting anybody's ability from putting anything on the ballot. While people may seem that people, a lot of times people will say, everything's being done in Delmar, and unfortunately that is a perception out there that we have to address. There are some issues, water issues outside of Delmar. Where I live, my part of town, there are water issues. And sometimes we get frustrated that no one at town hall feels like they're paying attention to us. And I do feel, and I do have empathy for them. That's why I'm running, because I want to bring a voice to everyone in this town, whether you're from North Bethlehem, Selkirk, South Bethlehem, Ellesmere, Old Delmar.
Okay. Ms. Cunningham.
I support representative democracy, period, end of story. So if the ward system is representative of the town and the population, I would support that. I'm not going to begin to say how that would function with different parts of town, but as long as it's representative, I would support that. I support voting rights and democracy. I wish we could actually do a representative form of the U.S. Senate because that needs some work. I also think the issues with different parts of town are real, and I always try and reach out to more people from different parts of town to ensure that we're listening and hearing those concerns. I will say that with our committees, we do make a point of including people from all parts of town. Sometimes we don't even get applications, and Jim knows this, but we actually sometimes seek out people from different parts of town to make sure that we have that geographic representation. But ultimately, a more representative form of government is always a good thing.
Okay, looks like we can do maybe 2 more questions before your closing statement. So this is a straightforward, should be asked all the time, budget question. Do you think the town's spending is in line with its revenue? And Mr. Foster, you get to tackle that first.
That certainly helps out from the trough, and the economic data is trending in the right direction in terms of sales revenue and other revenue that we might have lost as a result of the pandemic. So do I think we're in dire straits? No. But I think we can always look at how we're spending the money that we do have and where we're trending and where we may wind up in a few years. And I'm always extremely cautious when it comes to spending taxpayer money. I'm also extremely cautious when it comes to spending my own money. But that's a different story. But it's we need to always be mindful of how our priorities are allocated, where we're spending that money. And that's where the community comes in my view. We need to listen to the community more so as part of the budget process and where those priorities go, rather than driving from the top down on the budget. I think we need to listen from the bottom up for residents.
Mr. DeCancio?
Yes, I am committed to adopting structurally balanced budgets that ensure financial sustainability and sound economic growth for years to come. A budget is so much more than just numbers. It's about priorities. And to me, the priorities are very simple. Residents and preserving the quality of life we've come to expect. Many of our families have had to tighten our belts, especially during COVID right now. And the government has had to spend to prop up a little bit, and helping local businesses, the hardship funds for the small businesses in town, which has been vital. I want to work to lessen the property tax burden on our families and businesses by working with town staff to find ways to make our government more efficient, identify more shared service opportunities. So, we can actually, maybe alleviate some of the burden. I want to maximize and secure as much county, state, and federal funding as possible so we can reduce our reliance on local property taxes, which, as we all know, are the most regressive taxes out there. It makes it very difficult for people, especially seniors on fixed incomes, to survive. You know what? He is also expanding our tax base, but living within our means. I believe the town's done a great job. I think it's fiscally sound. I just think now, how do we make sure we're fiscally sound moving forward into years ahead without further burdening taxpayers?
Okay, Ms. Cunningham?
I agree with Jim. Our secret weapon is Michael Cohen, and there's not been a debate in the town where he isn't the most mentioned town employee, but he has been doing an amazing job
We have the best credit rating in Albany County. We're one of the few municipalities that do multi-year budget projections and planning, and we also have a multi-year capital plan. In fact, other communities ask Bethlehem to come speak. We have good policies. We don't use one-time resources to support ongoing expenses. We've been below the tax cap since its inception in 2012. Right now in our capital plan, a huge percentage of it is, I think half in the capital plan is for water and sewer. This is an investment, and sometimes investments need to be made. We have old infrastructure. New York State is the oldest water infrastructure in the country. So some of these investments are good long-term investments. I will say a lot of people ask about this, but we have one more budget year for the Albany water contract, which is a huge good thing for Bethlehem moving forward, that we don't have to pay for that. So I would say we keep Michael going and we keep sticking to the policies we've implemented.
And Mr. Carriero.
Well, I have as Maureen will call, a great regard for Mike Cohen. He's a master at the process. But Mike still has to accept budgets from the departments. He can't always run those or influence them. So an example of that is one of my favorite dislikes is the fact that we're burning fuel oil at a garage at the rate of $7,000 a month. And Mike can't change that. That's got to come from the leadership in the town. And I would just say to you, it's time that, even though Mike is a master at it, covering up some of these issues that need to be addressed is not in the best interest of the community. So he makes it possible for us to stay in balance, and he's a master at it. But there are still priorities that need to be reevaluated. So I would suggest to you that it's time for leadership to turn conservation on as a priority, and therefore Mike's going to have to invest in that.
Okay, Rick Gardner. Yep, another minute.
I would just like to add, I do believe the time has come, with COVID especially, it's time to reimagine town government. It's time to make it more accessible, efficient, and transparent, enhance communications with residents to interact. I think we need to look at more public-private partnerships to find opportunities from agribusiness to recreational opportunities to address the critical infrastructure needs that we have in this town. Like Maureen said, there's nothing more important than our water quality, our storm resiliency efforts, and those are investments that are going to enhance the quality of life for our residents. And I think, we need to find, the balance there of what we're going to do and what we can do.
Okay, I'm going to try to sneak in one more. I think we have time. Don't use your red cards, all right? Where has the current town board struggled with not meeting residents' expectations? What strategies do you have to address this? And the first one on this is
perception is everything. I do believe, the town board has done a good job of moving Bethlehem forward. The decisions that have been made for the good of our community, like I said, we are solid financial footing. The residents, for the most part, I go door to door, they're happy with our town. They're happy to live here. They like the services. Could everything be better? Of course, things could be better. I think the one thing we need to do, I keep going back to the same, argument is, we need to make sure everyone in this town feels like they have a voice at the table. I want to make sure that, we have to go above and beyond to make sure that voices from all parts of town and even differing opinions come to the table and are heard and respected. And that's why I believe, once again, the community needs a partner, someone that can bring people together. That's what I've been doing for the last 25 years here, 25 years. It's just coming together, finding the common ground, and making sure that, we kind of turn down the temperature a little bit, and let's focus on what's important. Our roads, our sidewalks, our water quality, senior programs, youth programs. If we start there, and we make sure everyone's included and everyone has the same access to the resources, whether it be a park in South Bethlehem or a park in North Bethlehem, they're all getting updated, they're all getting, refreshed looks, and our roads are being taken care of.
Listen more, talk less. Doing more outreach to businesses. We learned from past projects that, during construction and other times, that kind of outreach and two-way communication with businesses is critical. I think we can do more of that. It does cost money when you're talking about some kind of construction project, but it's money well spent. More public forums. I would say the same thing with some of our bigger projects. Building in more community input in the front end is critically important. I think we should do more of that. Again, listen to residents and represent residents. I don't take this position lightly, representing the whole community. I was not born in Bethlehem, so I don't have an interest of one hamlet over the other. I firmly believe in representing all of Bethlehem, and I think if I'm elected again, I'll continue to have an open door policy and meet with anyone and everyone who wants to speak with me.
Thanks, Mr. Carriero.
Those of us that are on the outside of the process sometimes grow quite frustrated when we see things like groundwater. So although I know that the town board is working on it, the facts are we just spent 3 months in Glenmont with groundwater. Now, that doesn't seem logical to me. If we're listening and we're aware, then that's an issue that needs to be dealt with. And it's not just in Glenmont. I'm sure it's other places. And Maureen, the amount of that we're paying the city of Albany is $2.1 million a year. So when that money is reallocated, there should be an ample opportunity to remove the investments that we got into that and to do other things with it. My worry is if we have that $2.1 million and we're having groundwater now, what's going to happen with the future? What is it we're doing with water in this community? Because the three things I want are clean air, clean water, and limited growth.
Okay, we have a written report from Ms. Cunningham. You get a minute to respond to. Yeah, so you want to respond to him, right?
Yeah, I can talk about water all day, actually. But you know what I want to talk about is climate change. If this is the last question and there's not been a single question about climate change, I want to talk about that. In my next term, I want to focus more on climate change and energy efficiency and building more clean energy infrastructure. One of my projects over the last 4 years was securing funding from the state to build electric vehicle charging stations on municipal properties. I want to continue to do that. I don't think we need new gas stations. I think we need more green infrastructure to manage stormwater, which may help our water supplies, by the way, and put in more watershed protections as well to protect our water. Thank you.
Now, Mr. Fluffy, get your got it.
Sure, yeah, I think one of the areas that I hear residents disappointed in is that they see the local political discourse at times poisoned by the national discourse, which are some issues that often don't have any relation whatsoever to local matters in Bethlehem, and in fact are divisive, and at times I think used intentionally to be divisive. And I don't find that constructive, and I think that the residents also find that it's disappointing and distracts from the local work and the local issues that we have that are critically important that we should be laser focused on addressing. When I first got involved or interested in engaging on the town board, it was naively thinking that at the local level, all that political nonsense kind of falls away. It shouldn't. I would be all in favor of elections for the town board that were like the library board, the school board, where there weren't political parties, where there were no little letters next to one another's names. We just ran as individuals on platforms and issues, local issues. That's what I'm concerned about, and that's what I want to focus on. And I think, quite frankly, there's a lot of fatigue. I think, regardless of where you are on the political spectrum, of the weight of national politics. And I would love for us to be able to focus on the local issues. We've got many challenges to face us, so we've got more than enough work to do.
So that's where I think that we often hear that residents are a little bit fatigued or disappointed in the board, and they want us to focus more so on local issues.
All right, now we squeezed it. We have 4 minutes left. You each have a minute for your final statement. Well, obviously, what time you go first? Yeah. Yeah, that's because in the cycle, we've gone all the way around and it's your turn. Yeah.
A special thanks to the League of Women Voters, the Bethlehem Chamber of Commerce, and Spotlight News for organizing this important event. But most of all, I thank the many town employees who work so hard day in and day out in this difficult COVID year as they performed essential town services, often with more complaints than thanks, without whom none of the successes I've mentioned and outlined tonight would be possible. By now you know me. I speak up. I ask questions. I'm a problem solver, and I'm always interested in listening to all viewpoints. I disagree with the supervisor as much as I disagree with any of my colleagues. I'm a proud Bethlehem mom of 2 multiracial sons. I'm an advocate for clean drinking water. I volunteered on many town and local committees working for safer streets, open spaces, and social environmental justice. It's been a privilege to serve as your town board member for the last 4 years, and I ask that you trust me to keep Bethlehem moving forward for the next 4. Thank you, and good night.
Thanks, Mr. Carrier.
Well, I consider it a privilege to be here tonight, and I'm very proud of the democracy that we've exhibited and the process that we follow. There are things that our town can do to improve. Those of us that are in the minority are not opposed to progress. We just need a voice. So at times when we speak up and say we don't agree with the policy the town is following, doesn't mean that we don't believe in our democracy or the process. It means we may have a different opinion. And therefore, those of us that are capable and willing to help stand up and give criticisms to what we think are inappropriate measures that government is taking. I would suggest to you that we have a very solid group of people on both sides that are going to fight it out to see what are the better ideas. And I hope you can judge us on our ability, our character, and our capabilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Foster.
I want to thank Maureen, Jim, and David for sharing their time and thoughts tonight. As a community, we are all made better when we come together like this and share ideas and discuss the issues. I also want to extend my appreciation to my fellow volunteers at the Ellesmere Fire Company that agreed to switch kitchen duty and cook in my absence so I could be here for tonight's forum. They assured me that they would save some pots and pans for me to wash after this, so for that thing. Washing dishes is probably a fitting metaphor for town government. If you do a good job, nobody will notice. But if you do a bad job, someone's going to complain about getting a dirty fork. Don't ever give anyone a dirty fork. Washing dishes is also what town government and that the public often doesn't see the pan their meal was prepared in. If no one in the kitchen speaks up or does something, nobody would ever know if the pan was dirty or the conditions unsanitary. That's why, regardless of whether you are for or against the road diet, I led the effort to invite you, the public, into the kitchen. I led the effort to get you the right to vote on the road diet. Never ignore a dirty pan. My solemn pledge to you is that if you trust me,
To Mr. Gansio.
I'm running for Bethlehem Town Board to build on what I've been doing for nearly 20 years, rolling up my sleeves, working with, for, and alongside you to make Bethlehem a place we can all be proud to call home. As your town board member, I will bring more energy and inclusiveness to our town government. Use my platform and long-standing relationships to encourage an inclusive dialogue that helps bridge the gaps that divide us and promote fairness and respect to everyone who lives in this town. Facilitate more collaboration among community groups, the business community, and our town to create more positive opportunities. Want to reimagine town government to increase efficiencies and transparency and accountability, as well as improve communications and enhance accessibility to town services and programs. Adopt a sound balanced budget that ensures financial sustainability, sound economic growth for years to come. And lastly, I will donate a portion of my salary to town nonprofits and community groups. I'm David DeCancio. Trust me with your vote, and I promise to work for everyone, every day, for an even better tomorrow.
Thank you. Okay, and I think our time is up. I want to thank the candidates. Thank you. I really did squeeze in as many questions as we would get into an hour and a half. Thank the people who submitted the questions, and thank the committee that sorted out and defined the questions so that they could be answered pretty directly. And remember, November 2nd, get out and vote. If you don't want to do it then, you can start October 23rd, or you can do it by absentee, and there's 2 sides to your ballot, the candidates and the questions. So thank you everyone for sticking with us for this hour and a half, and good luck. You have tough choices to make here. Thank you.
We're done. I'm sorry.